Black woman, when someone tells you to love yourself, what does that actually mean to you? Like practically on a Tuesday when your hair isn't done and you hadn't gotten to your goal weight and the kids are getting on your nerves and you tired and you this close to putting your 2-week resignation and the relationship is ended and you got bills that are due and the creditor is calling. Like realistically, when nobody's watching and nobody's clapping for you, what does self-love look like then? Because I think we've been sold a version of self-love that is mostly aesthetic. And I want to talk to you today about what self-love actually is. If you caught last week's video, we talked about why so many of us feel like we have to earn love. We talked about the wound of conditional love, anxious attachment, and what that wound does to the way we show up in every relationship in our life, romantic, platonic, and familial. And amongst other examples, I discussed these things in the context of the rise and the fall of that Black cult docu-series, because self-knowledge is not a luxury. It is a protection. It is a protection that those women and those men needed to not get sucked into the manipulation, the humiliation, the degradation, and the abuse. And the reality is though many of us or most of us have never been sucked in or manipulated into a cult, we have stayed in relationships that did not deserve us past their expiration. We have accepted less than what we deserve in relationships that were romantic, platonic, and familial. And some of us have allowed ourselves to be gaslighted into staying or returning. So our self-knowledge, our self-love is the foundation upon which every other relationship in our lives is either built or broken. So if you haven't seen my video from last week, I want you to go watch it after this one. The link will be in the description. Now for this Mental Health Awareness Month, this month of May, I've been sharing daily video love letters to Black women. A reminder every single day, sis, that you are worthy, that you are enough, that you don't have to do anything to deserve to be loved. And the responses that I've been getting in my DMs in particular are telling me that a lot of us can receive a love letter more easily than we can write one for ourselves. We can believe it when somebody else says it, but sitting down and saying, I am worthy, I am enough, I love who I am, that feels like a lie. Or at the very least, it feels like something we haven't yet earned. So today I want to ask you, what does it actually mean to love yourself when you were never taught how? Not the Calgon take me away version. Y'all remember that? Or am I dating myself? Not the vision board version, who I aspire to be one day out there, and then I'll love that version of me because she's some idea or ideal of perfection. The real unglamorous, life-changing version. Now, hello all. If you're new to me, my name is Dr. Sherelle MacArthur, otherwise and better known as Dr. Mac. I am an associate professor, an educational researcher, a wellness and life coach to Black women, an author, a speaker, a mommy. And just like you, I am in transition. Just like you, I had to unlearn what self-love is so I could show up for myself more fully. So let's start with what self-love is not, because I think the noise around it has done real damage. Some people, when they heard me say self-love, they clicked off this video. I'm like, don't leave yet, okay? Don't leave yet. Self-love is not selfishness. And I think for Black women, we're going to have to do the real work of disconnecting ourselves or divorcing ourselves from the notion and the belief that to love myself and to prioritize me and my well-being is selfish. Or we need to divorce ourselves from the notion that selfishness is problematic in and of itself. Because it's not, and it's not narcissism. It's not deciding that you don't need anybody, and it's not a feeling that you either have or you don't have, right? Self-love is a practice. And when I work with Black women, particularly mommies, it is so hard for them to wrap their mind around prioritizing themselves. Listen, I am a single mother to a 14-year-old son. And when I say I'm a single mother, that does not mean that I raise my son outside of community. There are a bevy of people who absolutely love and pour into my child. When I say that I'm a single mother, that means that I'm not co-parenting with the biological parent, right? I do co-parent with my mother and my father and my stepfather and a whole host of aunties and nieces and nephews who, love him because they're the bigger cousins and friends, and just a community, a beautiful community that's around this little boy and show up for him in every single way. However, what I also know is that nobody can love my son like I love my son. Plenty of people love my son and love him remarkably, but nobody can love my baby like I love my baby. Nobody thinks about my baby like I think about my baby. And because of that, I have to put myself first. That's not antithetical to me raising him. Because if I can't get out of that bed, if I'm losing my mind, if I had stressed myself to a point that my thyroid is out of whack, I have underactive thyroid, if I stress myself to the point that I'm just depressed, can't see straight, can't think straight, if I stress myself to the point that I got to be laid up in somebody's hospital, because we know the stress is a killer, sis. If I can't physically, mentally, and emotionally function, who takes care of him? So I make sure that I see my therapist every other Wednesday. I have worked with coaches myself. I, feed into my spiritual well-being. I do attend a church. I also have a variety of spiritual conversations with friends, and I tune into a variety of sources online. I get out, I move my body. On Mondays, I walk with a friend who's also a neighbor. She's the mother of one of my son's friends, and we both bought houses in the same community, so we walk together on Mondays. I exercise. I go on vacations. I go on vacations with my son. I go on vacations with my friends. I go on vacations by myself. I take myself to the spa. I got a massage today. I am planning to go out of state to take myself to a spa for my birthday, which is coming up soon. I ensure that I am taking care of myself holistically, not just my body and not just my mind and not just my emotions, all of me. I have a financial advisor. I meet with him a couple of times a year. Sometimes it's quarterly to talk about what's happening with my money, where it's going, not a budget, but actually the investments that I've made to take care of my son, particularly in the event of my demise. So I take care of me all the way around. And my son is very clear when I'm like, mommy needs a day for myself. He understands that, and I'm modeling it for him. Okay. So self-love is a practice. It is a set of choices that we make repeatedly. And also, get this, it can be imperfect. I don't always get it right. You're not going to always get it right. And these practices are often in the direct opposition to everything that we were taught. We were taught to be selfless. We were taught to be self-sacrificing. We were taught, especially when you love, to put that person first. As a mother, I should put my child first. As a wife, you should put your husband first. That you show up somewhere way down the line on the list of who should be taken care of, right? And in my coaching sessions, we usually pretty early on in our sessions uncover their inner critic. How many of you have an inner critic? When I'm working with clients, I usually, not usually, but I have us discuss the root of said inner critic, and I have them name their inner critic. And your inner critic is that voice inside you that narrates your life, that narrates your choices, that narrates your body, that narrates your worthiness, that narrates your value. And for many of us, that voice is not our own. It is a collection of every person, whoever made us feel like we were too much or not enough at all. A parent, a teacher, a partner, a culture that has spent centuries telling Black women that our value is located entirely in what we produce and who we protect. Have you seen these new reels, TikToks, videos going around of people who are not Black, who were taught or who are telling their children that if they get lost to find a Black woman, while at the same time, Black women can't exist in society without being policed, surveilled, called the manager or the police on. So we're not safe. And you need to ensure you know what we're doing at all points in time. But if your child gets lost, they need to come find us. Now, these two ideals seem antithetical to each other. Nonetheless, we all exist. We all, as in Black women, exist in a society in which this society has socialized us to believe, and others socialized all of us to believe, that our worth is connected entirely to what we produce and who we protect. And so that inner critic over time gets louder and it gets louder and it gets more comfortable existing within us and speaking up and speaking out. And at some point, we stopped questioning that inner critic and we just simply started agreeing with it. So when someone like myself in this video right now says, love yourself, that inner critic is the first thing that responds, love myself with what? With what? I haven't done enough yet. I'm still working on it. Maybe when I lose the weight, or maybe when my credit score is a 770, or maybe when I get the promotion, or maybe when I finish school, or maybe when I get married, maybe when I finally have it all together. Maybe, maybe, maybe. And here's what I know to be true as a wellness and life coach to Black women. Self-love is not the reward at the end of a self-improvement journey. Not only do I know that as a wellness and life coach, I know that as a Black woman myself. Self-love is the foundation that makes the journey possible in the first place. It is because I love myself that I make sure that I am in therapy. It is because I love myself that I make sure that I get my back massaged and I take time out to get my nails and feet done and my locks retwisted, that I take time away with my friends, that I take time away with myself. It is because you love yourself that you have made it this far in this video, that you intend to subscribe so you can see the daily love letters, that you'll do the love work at the end of this video as reflective journal prompts. It's because you love yourself, not because you don't. Self-love is the foundation that makes our healing journeys, our growth journeys possible in the first place. And you cannot heal from a place of self-contempt. You cannot build a life you love while hating the woman who's doing the building. It's just not possible. So let's talk briefly about what it actually does look like to love yourself. And I'm going to give you the unglamorous version of it, okay? Because self-love looks like accountability. Accountability. For a season, I referred to myself as accountability coach. And the only reason that I no longer have that as part of my moniker, so to speak, is because I find accountability just fluid in the work that I do as a wellness and life coach. I don't need to be this kind of coach and that kind of coach. Wellness and life coach, I do it all. And one of the things that I do is make sure that I hold us accountable. And self-love is accountability. That's the unglamorous version of self-love, because it's not all bubble baths and manis and petties. Accountability is telling yourself the truth, even when the truth is uncomfortable. What is an uncomfortable truth? That you played a role in your relationship ending. Sometimes we don't talk about the role that we played. We only talk about the role that they played. And that uncomfortable truth is it's okay to hold ourselves accountable without using that truth as a weapon against ourselves. Here's the role that I, just using this as an example, there are several. Here's the role that I played in the demise of that relationship. And being very clear in what that was and what I need to attend to in myself so that I don't keep showing up that way in relationships in the future. And that relationship could have been romantic, but maybe it was platonic. Maybe you played a role in the demise of the relationship with your best friend. I see people online every single year at the end of the year saying they cleaning out friends and I'm getting rid of friends. How do you have so many friends to get rid of every single year? I just don't understand that. Why are all these friends so bad every year? And if every one of your friends is consistently bad, is there some accountability that you need to take? And again, this accountability is not to weaponize the truth against yourself, because it's the difference between I made a mistake and I am a mistake. It's okay to say I made a mistake. The inner critic would say I am a mistake, and that's the voice that we want to do away with. And so sometimes we're unwilling to be accountable because that inner critic is so loud saying you are a mistake. And we've got to be willing and do the work to silence that, quiet that voice so that we can hear that I made a mistake. Here are the mistakes that I made, and here are the actions that I'm willing to take so I don't make that mistake again. That's accountability. Another unglamorous version of self-love looks like having needs and not apologizing for them. So that's for the people pleasers in the room. Not shrinking your hunger to make someone else comfortable. Not performing okayness when you're not okay. Girl, how you doing today? Oh, I'm okay. I'm fine. I'm good. I'm well. You just cried yourself to sleep last night. You was just crying in the car. You were on the verge of quitting. What do you mean you're okay? You don't have to perform okayness. It's okay to state what your needs are and allow the people who can show up for you to show up for you. It's okay to state what your needs and your wants are so that you're being honest with yourself first and foremost. Okay. Another unglamorous version of self-love are boundaries. And I know that word is tired. We hear boundaries all the time, but stay with me for a moment, because a boundary is not a wall. A boundary is not a punishment. A boundary is not something that you put up to stay behind so nobody else can get in. A boundary is not you welding it as a weapon against people. It's like I come across sometimes people pleasers that got so burnt out, tired, and frustrated from being a doormat, essentially, that when they choose to uphold their boundaries, they run so far in the opposite direction that it's like, okay, now you're just a mean girl. That's not a boundary. You all the way over here in like damn near narcissism. Can we find a middle ground? Can we find some middle ground, right? A boundary is you saying, this is what I can give and this is what I cannot. And both of those things are true at the same time. Here's what I can say yes to, and here's what I have to say no to. And sometimes people say, I can say yes to these people, and I'm saying no to these people. Now, that's okay if that works for you, but that's not technically what I'm talking about. I'm saying that even in this dynamic, there might be some no's that you want to say to this person. Here's what I can say yes to, and here's what I have to say no to, right? Those are my boundaries. And we can come back and talk about that another time. If you'd like to, just let me know in the comments what else you want to hear, what you want me to expound upon. But this last one, another unglamorous version of self-love, I have to cover real quick because I don't think when I'm watching other mental health professionals, I don't think we really discuss it. I don't think it comes up. And that is the notion that self-love may look like grief. It may look like being willing to mourn the version of yourself that had to survive instead of live or instead of thrive, to sit with her, to honor what she carried, and to lovingly tell yourself that she doesn't have to carry it anymore. See, sometimes, and I've said this before, sometimes when it's time for you to thrive, all the tools and the armor that you've put on in order to survive become too heavy when it's time for you now to fly and thrive, right? And so there can be a grief when it's time for you to become a different version. And the older version of you, the version of you that got you through all that mess, is like, what about me? And it's okay for her to grow. It's okay for her to evolve. And I think that nobody really talks about that version of our self-love, our willingness to thank her for what she carried, thank her for what she endured, and also be willing to let her go so that we can advance. Because I mean, it's not pretty. But some of the most profound self-love work there is, and why I created this series in the Facebook community, Black Women Becoming, is because many of us are really no longer who we've been, but not yet who we will become. We're not yet who God is creating and crafting and designing us into. Many of us are redefining who we want to be as our needs and wants change over time. Many of us are choosing an identity for ourselves once we realize that the life we had was one that potentially others wanted for us and not necessarily the life of our own design. Or maybe you feel like you've checked all the boxes, you lived the American dream, you did all the things that your parents or your guardians raised you to do, and now you're sitting here like, God, I'm not even fulfilled by these check boxes. That's Black women becoming. Now, I want to speak directly to women who were raised in households where love was expressed through sacrifice, right? Where most likely the women you admired the most loved everyone else first and themselves last, if at all. Where self-sacrifice was not just modeled, but celebrated. Self-sacrifice, where self-sacrifice was celebrated, not just a model that you saw, right? Because it's the reality that we were socialized into so many of the ways that we've become. You didn't come to self-abandonment on your own. You were taught it because you saw it. And you were taught it by the people around you who were taught it by the people around them, right? And most likely they had very little choice in the matter. Do you know that women couldn't independently have a bank account or a credit card until 1974? 1974 is in your mother's lifetime. 1974 is in my mother's lifetime. 1974 is in my grandmother's lifetime. My grandmothers had been married for years before 1974, years. And they couldn't have their own bank accounts where these women was putting money under the mattress. You understand what I'm saying? That means they had to have a man to have control of their own money. Certainly, there was a lot of self-sacrificing those women had to make to survive. And even now, I've had friends who weren't married, who had children and wanted to get their tubes tied, and their more than one, and their male gynecologist asked them what would happen if they later got married and their husband wanted children, that they wouldn't consider the rights that she had over her own body more than a fictional husband who may or may not arrive. But that's likely what that gynecologist was used to. Where's the husband at? Well, he gets to decide what happens next. So, of course, this isn't even in our distant past, right? It would be easy to have grown up in an environment where it was modeled for you to put yourself and your needs last. And loving yourself is not a rejection of those who raised you. Loving myself is not a rejection of the mother that I have and what she taught me to employ, or the mother that she had, and by proxy, what that taught me to employ by grandma, right? It is the completion of something that they never got to finish. My demonstration of self-love is a completion of something that my grandmothers and my mother may not have even had opportunities to endeavor within, to enjoy. It is me living out what they deserved, but never really got the opportunity to receive. My mother was married to my father at the age of 19. She was in school full time and she worked full time. My father worked full time, but there are still aspects of her late adolescence and her young adulthood that she simply did not get to have. She went to college. Yes, she didn't get to live on campus. She didn't get to do all the things that I got to do when I went away to college. So she just got to kind of live, listen, and live vicariously through my experience. So the life that I have built, a real, honest, grounded relationship with myself, it didn't change my own life. It changed every relationship in it, and it gave others watching me permissions that they may have never knew that they needed. I watch my mom watch me and be inspired by me in so many ways, to include that she too went back to school once I registered in school to get my PhD. And my mother went back to school and my mother got a PhD. That is the power of what happens when we love ourselves out loud and define our lives on our own terms. Others are inspired too. So the more that you're willing to love yourself loudly and proudly and unapologetically, it gives someone else, whether younger, older, or your same age, the permission to say, man, if she can do it, I'm going to do it. Right? Also, you stop auditioning for people who were never going to cast you in the first place, right? You stop trying to prove your worth and your value, and you say, you can see very clearly the dynamics of this relationship, and if you even want them in the first place, again, whether romantic, platonic, or familial. You stop shrinking in friendships that were never really safe for you. You stop contorting yourself in family relationships, hoping that this time, finally, you'll be loved the way that you need to be. And it's not because you become cold or closed off, but because you know yourself well enough to know the difference between love that is building you up and love that is slowly taking you apart. And that understanding, that acknowledgement within your spirit, in your being, in your actions, that is true self-liberation. And it's collective, because every Black woman who learns to love herself well, who learns to love herself and love herself well, makes it a little more possible for every sister coming up behind her. It changes the things that we're willing to accept. It changes, policies, practices, and procedures in our employment and in the governing of this country. We make it a little more possible for the ones who are coming behind us. Now, the daily love letters that I'm sharing keep coming because I believe that repetition is part of the medicine that we need. So particularly for this Mental Health Awareness Month of May, I'm going to continue to share the daily love letter, because that repetition, that medicine of us hearing it again and again and again, that we're worthy, that we're enough, that we deserve love, that helps us get past our inner critic and land somewhere deep within us. So today's letter is this, sis: you are not a project to be completed before you deserve love. You are a person right now as you are, and loving yourself, sis, is not something that you have to earn. It is something that you practice your way into believing. You've practiced your way into disbelieving. So we have to practice. We have to hear it over and over again until we are certainly sure that we deserve love just as we are. And we start with the love that we give to ourselves. All that good love that you give to everyone else, all that good love that these friends that you cut off every year get to have, all that good love that them partners who are now exes get to say that they reveled in and just really got to enjoy. And you don't get to enjoy your own good love? Certainly. You should give yourself the love that you so freely give away. And by doing so, the people around you watching the way I love myself, I watch my son learn to love himself that way. Ooh, I need time to myself. Mom, I want to do this for myself. And not in a selfish way, but in a restorative way. When he feels depleted, he knows how to pour back into himself, and he's not expecting someone else to do the pouring. He's been learning and watching because I'm modeling for him how to pour into himself. Okay? So you give all that good love away and you don't get to receive it? No, ma'am. Now, next week, we're going to go even deeper, and we're going to talk about the actual practice of letting it in, of sitting in it, of not talking yourself out of love the moment it arrives. We're going to talk about why nobody taught us how to receive love and what it costs us if we never learn. If this video resonated with you, I want you to go back and watch last week's video. Like, comment, share. I really want to hear from you. I don't want to just be talking into the abyss. So please comment. Let me hear from you, okay? The link for that video, last week's video, will be in the description. And subscribe so you can see my daily love letters. Man, sometimes we just need a palate cleanse. I'm so tired of the pop the balloon and the black man versus black women. Like, I would love to see daily love letters that I could tune into, written from a sister like y'all to sisters like y'all, right? So subscribe, share, because you don't want to miss what's coming next, and you want to ensure that other sisters get to be a part of what we're building here. Now, grab your journal, because remember I said I like to give love work, which is homework rooted in love. Because I'm an educator and a wellness and life coach, I end my videos with some reflective journal prompts to aid your journey. I have 4 questions for you today. Question 1, what does the voice of your inner critic sound like? And whose voice is it really? What does the voice of your inner critic sound like, and whose voice is it really? I had a client once tell me that she had a supervisor who was so degrading that when she hears her inner voice, that's the voice she hears. And so she named her inner voice after her supervisor. Some people's inner critic might sound like a parent. Some people's inner critic might sound like their 6th grade teacher. What does your inner critic sound like, and whose voice is it really? Question 2. In what areas of your life are you still waiting to be enough before you allow yourself to rest, to receive, or simply enjoy being alive? Question 3. What is one thing that you've been withholding from yourself? Permission, rest, joy, grace that you would freely give to someone you love. Are you giving the folks around you more grace, more opportunities when they mess up than you're willing to give yourself? Are you encouraging other people to take a break and don't get burnt out and exhausted, but you aren't allowing yourself to rest? Are you encouraging other people to live and experience joy, but you won't, go to the line dancing class that you really want, or, go swimming every Tuesday and Thursday at the Y? What is one thing that you have been withholding from yourself, whether it's permission, rest, joy, or grace, or something else that you would freely give to someone you love? And question 4, what would it mean for you to grieve the version of yourself who had to survive? What would you say to her? Now, you don't have to leave answers to your journal prompt in the comments unless you want to, but do leave your reflections. I want to hear from you. And then share this with a woman in your life who has been taking care of everyone else and quietly running on empty. She needs to hear this today, and she needs to hear the daily love letters. So I'll see you all next week. You are loved fully, freely, and without conditions, Black woman. We are Black women becoming together.